Okay. Um.
I got into like a debate about trans stuff earlier
Oh
today
boy.
about puberty
Who?
blockers.
Oh, who with?
Just some like random Twitter users. I was talking to this leftist guy on Twitch, and in that conversation, he said that puberty blockers for children are reversible. And I said that they can be, but if you don't take them with estrogen in the scenario we were talking about, then you're at risk for osteoporosis, which is not reversible by simply going off of puberty blockers.
Yeah, true.
And so that caused quite a bit of drama. And people are like upset at me on Twitter, even though I am correct.
Wait, yeah, that's just correct.
Well,
Yeah,
they're like, I don't know. They're like running like mental circles to try to justify why I'm wrong. And I think the current strategy is that like, well, you're labeling osteoporosis as a trans issue, but actually you can get osteoporosis from other things. And a good doctor would just put you on estrogen. So this isn't a problem for like trans healthcare.
um, but people should be able to take blockers without going on it. They won't.
Yeah, that's my
Kind of
intuition
mean.
as well.
Oh wait, forgot. This light fucks my shit up.
I just picked a hair tie up from the ground with my foot.
Yeah. Charge. Yeah.
They said that I could come on stream to debate them, which hopefully they follow up on.
Ah, that sounds like fun.
Because they're streaming right
I
now.
I don't know. I haven't debated anyone particularly for a very long.
Mm. No debates.
Avery, I've won every single debate I've had. Okay.
Can I add your face to my stream?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Excellent. Very good.
Uh, you need to adjust something.
I think I see the reason why. Like, you don't want to like stop and start streams.
Oh yeah, 100%, because your attention won't be there. Like, I completely thought that like whenever you were done streaming, that you would just be done for the day, because whenever you start and stop, you don't retain any of those people.
Yeah. Well, I also,
So
I don't know, just because I'm not like editing anything on YouTube, it is sort of nice to like stop and start just so that like the automatic video upload will have a different title, which is like supreme
yeah,
laziness on my part.
I have my boyfriend is in the back.
What is your boyfriend saying?
Oh, he's not saying anything right now. It's okay. He knows to stay quiet. Yeah. Don't worry about it. Okay.
I, I'm just like telling these people, bring me into your call. Oh, Synth, are you in my Discord, by the way?
I don't think so. If you send me an invite to it, I will be.
I'll put an invite in the controversial
group chat.
transsexuals. I can't believe you're a League player, Synth.
Yeah, I am a League player. Because League of
Disgusting.
Legends is good.
Disgusting.
It's okay. Avery agrees with you. He doesn't like League of Legends either.
I think I've only played League of Legends like once or twice, to be fair. I know almost nothing about it.
It's probably not that fun to play whenever you're learning it, but whenever you've actually learned how to play the game, it's pretty fun. It also depends on like your stress management. If you get
Right.
tilted really easily, or just like don't really do anything with flaming, then it can be really bad. But other than that, I don't know. I think it's a fun game because you get to improve yourself.
Yeah. I used to be like Hearthstone Battlegrounds, and I would get tilted playing that game. Because it's like
I
so
don't think.
random chance based.
Oh yeah. And that's kind of how League is, because there are some games that are genuinely just unwinnable because you have 4 people on your team that just aren't even people. They're just like they're not even AI. They're like below that. Their intelligence is like non-existent, and you're just like, okay, well, we're gonna lose this game.
Guess we're fucked.
So it's but you get to play as well as humanly possible for yourself, which is the fun part.
I see. Oh my god, these people. Let me. Oh my god, they said 45 minutes? Oh, hell yes. Okay. The bat cloud. Why is it not? Oh my. They sent me an invalid link.
How'd they send you a Discord?
Are you American? Oh, sorry. I will. Are you American? What's with those decorated doors? Europeans always just have flat door panels. I guess that's an American thing. Yeah. I feel like that's very common here. Just gonna. Yeah, we have electric kettles. I owned an electric kettle for a while, but I fucked it
There
up.
aren't any like good 2-player game memes.
Oh yeah, yeah, it is a bit hard. I feel like, where's Gammix? What happened to her?
I don't know. Gamey said she'd be around today, but
Unbelievable.
yeah, I know.
Liar, dude. She keeps lying.
True. A Weasley little liar.
Exactly. And Calvin's been
Just MIA.
Yeah,
Not even
MIA.
talking. Hasn't said a thing.
Disappeared. Maybe he's on a bender right now.
Maybe.
Yeah, the link was invalid. Wait, Lexi goes by... No, Sin... Oh, did I get a new link from Alex? Hell yes.
Are you guys talking? What are you guys gonna talk about? Same thing
This
as before?
disagreement.
Oh, really?
I don't know if it'll be that spicy. Because, like, I'm pretty sure they agree with me and they're just, like, misinterpreting what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think that... I mean, it's just, like, the correct thing that puberty blockers cause, like, bone issues. Especially in, like, male people. So...
Male people.
Male people.
AMAB people.
AMAB people.
Oh, you fucked up. You fucked up big time.
Most politically correct. Yeah.
Called trans men male people.
True.
Clip it and ship it, boys. She was a Ben Shapiro supporter the whole time.
True. Me going up there, all act.
Right. It was a false
Just
flag.
to make him look good. Yep. Have you been playing any games in your off time?
A little bit of Minecraft. And Hearthstone,
Really?
as per usual.
What's the highest rank you've made it to in Hearthstone?
I mostly play their auto battler battlegrounds, and I was like top 1% for a little bit, but I think the problem with Hearthstone is just that, like, it's so grindy, and so, like, if you have a deck that wins 52% of the time and you play it enough, eventually you'll get to, like, the legend rank. Because, you know, it's got, like, 52 is enough that on, if you play enough
average,
games,
you'll
be increasing in rank.
Yeah.
Okay. I am going to jump into this call with these people. So tell me if Gammy comes in, and then I'll leave the call with them in a little bit. Also, try to think of like games for three of us.
Yeah, I can go through my Steam, but I know a lot of games for 3 people.
Okay.
I'll be chilling though. I'll be here. I'll be around.
Okay, good. Counting on you.
Hi, April, right?
Hi, how's it going?
Yeah, not bad. April, right?
Alex, yeah, and Sin.
Yeah, Alex and Sin. I'm Lexi back on.
I'm Sin.
Okay.
I've,
do you have,
been around the block a few times, but
Okay, right on.
By the way, I just want to say on the outset, I love and respect that you are like an open and honest sex worker that enjoys what you do and is honest and like actively talks about it and educates people about it.
I try to. I think that there's like a lot of ways to talk about sex work that is like a little bit disingenuous, where either you're presenting it as like, this unmitigated good that like has no downsides, which I think is dangerous, or, you're totally demonizing it. And so
oh yeah,
I think we really just need people to be like sort of honest that it's like, it's a job like anything else, and jobs can be shitty.
Yeah, and there can be instances of exploitation and abuse within those. Yeah, sure, go for it, Sam.
Oh yeah,
there
especially.
can be, yeah, exploitation and abuse within those jobs. But legalizing that shit makes it easier for that exploitation and abuse to be reported to the relevant authorities.
Yeah, quite possibly.
One of the problems we have here, just before we talk about the trans thing, one of the problems we have here is that while it is legal to be a sex worker, it is not legal to hire a sex worker.
Mm-hmm.
So if a client goes to a sex worker who does not correctly speak English or looks scared or is quite obviously like a trafficking victim, they cannot report it without risking themselves going to prison for it. So
Interesting.
nothing ends up happening. Like, they can't say this person has clearly been forced into this and seems to be a trafficking victim because of this reason, and this reason, which means the trafficking victim ends up not being able to get any help because the Johns can't anonymously report.
Does seem like
And
a
I hate
problem.
Well, North
I guess
Korea
you're in
is, yeah.
the UK, because I know that's the
Yeah.
case in the UK. Okay.
Yeah, I hate this place as a trans person and a former sex worker. I fucking hate this place.
Yeah, I mean, talking about trans stuff in the UK, the discussion earlier, we talked about how the NHS, or like all its, benefits and advantages, has a lot of difficult parts that make it hard for trans people to get healthcare. And so trans people in the UK have like resorted to gray market hormones.
Yes and no. So where available, quite a lot of people have gone for black market hormones where they've been able to. That's a thing I know has happened, which I don't approve of, but I can understand.
Interesting. You don't approve of that.
I don't approve of that, but I do understand it. I don't approve of that because if you do not have the education on how dosing works, that can be very dangerous, especially if you're not getting regular blood tests to make sure your hormones are in line. It can be, like I say, it can be very dangerous if you don't do it right and you don't know what you're doing. And most people don't know how dosing works.
That's an interesting take. You're with the Destiny crowd on that one.
Honestly, I don't really care about Destiny, like, at all.
Yeah. I also like discussed this with him, and I took the position that, hormones are probably not the worst kind of drug that you can choose to
they're absolutely
self-dose
not.
with.
They are absolutely not, but I'm quite open about drugs generally.
Right.
And I think generally, because almost everybody will experiment with recreational drugs at some point in their life. I am of the opinion that prevention is better than cure when it comes to things like overdoses and what have you. And we can prevent overdoses if we teach people things like where to get drug testing kits and how to correctly dose.
I see. Interesting.
Because people are going to do it anyway. You're not going to stop people doing recreational drugs just like they didn't stop people drinking during Prohibition.
Yeah. I mean,
so if
this is an interesting position, because I think I tend to agree with you. Where it's the culture's responsibility to educate people and to help reach out to people, prevent them from, becoming addicted or getting into the kinds of positions where addiction or drug use seems like a good option. And maybe not so much the government's role to super regulate those sorts of things.
Yeah, but also a lot of that is rule based. It's socioeconomic. There's also some evidence that it's based upon boredom. There was a study done with rats about fucking 10 years ago now, where they put two sets of rats in cages. And I'm not saying humans are rats, but we've seen parallels in the results, right? They've put two sets of rats in cages.
I'll say that. We all suck.
Oh, God, Sin, shut up for a minute while I explain.
I've heard of this study before, yeah. Basically, the idea is
two sets of rats, and one with nothing to do and one with loads of stuff to play with, and the ones with nothing to do ended up recreationally using heavy drugs until they were addicted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there is evidence that it's a boredom thing, so if there's no infrastructure around for them to have leisure activities, or they don't have the socioeconomic ability for leisure activities, they're more likely to turn to drugs, and if they are in lower socioeconomic climates and areas, they're more likely to turn to drugs to deal with things like depression. Just because they're like, fuck it, I need something for numbness.
Right. I have heard of this study before. I have also heard that it's somewhat quite criticized, but I don't have the science background to offer that criticism.
The only reason I know this is because I used to be, I used to work in community outreach and support, and I used to actively support addicts because I'm an ex-addict myself.
I see. So you would know a lot more about it.
Yeah, I used to actively support addicts, particularly homeless addicts. One thing that you find a lot in this country, I don't know if it's the same in the US, people will lose their job, lose their, like, not through any fault of their own, but just because, like, their company's having to close or whatever, they'll be made redundant. And then they'll lose their home because they can't keep up with rent payments, because at the time there wasn't, like, an awful lot of labour available. Like, there wasn't a lot of jobs available for labourers. And they would then end up on the street, and then after a little while on the street, they would end up turning to drugs and heavy alcohol abuse in order to deal with the difficulty of living on the street.
It sounds plausible to me. I'm not sure. I've got to confess ignorance that if you're telling me this is like a common cycle, I'm just going to have to believe you, because I'm not as well versed in the topic as you are.
Well, at least you are someone who can confess ignorance in a topic they don't know much about, you know, because you get so many people on the fucking internet who won't do that.
Right, I try to. Do we have disagreements about trans hormones? Do we want to talk about that?
I think we do.
Okay, first of all, what do you think my position is?
From the arguments you made to Graham, it sounded very much that your position was puberty blockers shouldn't be available to trans.
Oh my god, okay.
Can I take a shot at this too?
Okay, yes, you also take your shot.
I think the position is that we should be limiting access to transition to people who are 18 and over, just because there can be potential issues with children transitioning. You specifically cited osteoporosis. I don't remember if there's anything else in specific you cited.
Okay. Yeah. So I think that part of this might be just, you know, the tumult of online conversations. It makes it hard to sort of communicate ideas clearly. So the two things that you took from it between you two was that either puberty blockers shouldn't be available, or that we ought to limit access to people 18 or older. My position is that we ought to limit access to hormones to people who show that they're having distress without them, right? And the reason for this, you know, is because hormones can have long-lasting effects, and if there isn't a good reason to go on the hormones in the first place, to, you know, fix some underlying issue, to help with some underlying issue, then it's not worth it to risk those long-term effects. And so the retort that we got in the conversation was that, well, puberty blockers don't have a long-term effect. And this is true if you're taking them with estrogen. So if you take...
Not necessarily with estrogen.
Yeah.
There are other medications available that prevent osteoporosis, and you need regular, up-to-date, common bone density scans alongside taking puberty blockers. If you catch it early enough, osteoporosis can be prevented.
Okay.
The
So
is if you get where it's osteoporosis, there's been medical negligence taking place because they haven't been keeping a close enough eye upon your bone density while you're taking blockers.
And so to add on to that too, there is a level of like for trans children specifically, like puberty blockers are only supposed to be used for a short duration, like 3 to 5 years tops. And I mean, even then, we've been using them in cisgender children since like 60s, I think, 60s or 70s. So I mean, this isn't something that like is a relatively new phenomenon. We've known and we've kind of seen a lot of this. But any doctor who is prescribing this will specifically go out of their way to make sure there is. Well, you're right. I do know, like, so my therapist treats, and I don't know any details, obviously, but she has underage patients, and even then she tells me, yeah, no, we make sure that we're completely on top of everything. We're checking, you know, we're doing blood tests once a month. We're doing body scans, you know, or not once a month, like once every 3 months. We're doing body scans once every 6 months. And they're fairly non-invasive body scans. They're just kind of like, they'll do an
Full
x-ray
body
twice a
MRIs
year.
and what have you.
Yeah. And
So
then
to
they'll
be
do
clear,
targeted
do you
MRIs.
agree that puberty blockers can have effects that aren't reversible simply by stopping taking them? Do you agree with that?
To the extent that I would agree aspirin could have damages if improperly used. I mean, so basically
No,
anything
not
can have.
improperly used. Properly used to stop puberty.
But even
Yeah, but
then,
the
if
point
they're
is,
not
if you end
monitoring
up,
that, they're not properly using them.
No, okay.
That is a form of
No.
negligence.
Because if you're using puberty blockers and you're using them for an extended period of time, not even extended, right? Like 1.5, 2 years, you have these effects, or less, depending. And you're getting consistent bone scans. Let's say we're doing everything like above the board, and the bone scans start to indicate that there is some loss of bone density in this child who's taking puberty blockers. You now have the decision to either take them off the puberty blockers, because continuing to put them on the puberty blockers will cause further loss of bone density, right? Or put them
I need
on
to get my doctor
estrogen.
back.
But one of these cases, right, either of these cases is going to have irreversible long-term effects, or at least not reversible by simply taking them off the medication. There are other
but like I
medications
say,
that
there
can
are
improve
there
bone
are other
density.
medications that can fix that
But
problem
it's
that you
not.
can give
It's not like a
alongside
snap. You
puberty
don't just
blockers.
fix the problem, right?
No,
like
I'm not saying it's a
sometimes they
snap.
fix the problem.
No, please don't misrepresent my argument.
No,
That's not what I'm
but
saying.
the point is that like it's not as simple as just putting them on another medication, right?
No, but I'm not, for fuck's sake, listen to what I'm saying. What I am saying is you can do both at the same time. You can give the protective density medication at the same time as giving puberty blockers to prevent that even being an issue.
Yeah, I mean the other problem is that like it does happen where if you lose bone density from puberty blockers, that's very hard to get back. And
But it
the
is possible
solution
to
is
reverse it.
not always, no. I mean, a lot of times you can improve it, or you can take medications that help you deal with like potential symptoms, but you cannot always just get that bone density back, right?
But even then, the amount of bone density you're losing is not significant enough to make up a large enough difference. Like it's
No,
from my
that's not
picture,
true.
it's
Last dialogue.
2 to 5% in what would be projected. But even then, when we looked it up earlier today on the same stream, we were like, what does it look like in terms of the population? And in a study of twins from ages 18 to 80, it was like 25 to 50% variance in bone density.
Yeah,
So
it
it doesn't
wasn't
really
even
seem
enough
like
to
this is
make
a
up like a
significant amount
general.
metric.
It sounds like that you fundamentally agree, though, that puberty blockers can have long-term effects, right?
Yeah, sure, they can
Okay.
if irresponsibly used, right? If for the most part, if responsibly prescribed and responsibly monitored, they don't. For the most part, I'm not saying that's in every case. There are outliers, right? Because there's outliers in every statistic.
But here's the thing. If you continue to take puberty blockers with no estrogen, eventually they're going to have negative effects.
Well, this is why I'm saying one of the things we could do is prescribe the because there are hormoneless fuck, I can't remember the name of them properly, but they're like that. They're basically to maintain bone density, but they're not hormone based. There is a medication to do that. We could prescribe those at the same time as puberty blockers and prevent the issue, theoretically.
Theoretically, I have not heard of these drugs, so I don't know. Perhaps their efficacy is incredible, but I think the fundamental, the premise is something that we're not disagreeing on, and
Well,
I don't
and even
know.
then, too, to further, like, to kind of what I elicited on Twitter is that you'd have to prove, not like, but so, like, in order to take this to the next step, even if we were to say, yes, there could be this potential, you'd have to prove then that cisgender children who are getting the same treatment and people and other medicine that other children are taking that this child could also take. Number one, the cisgender children aren't receiving the same level of damage. And number two, that the other medication does not have significant side effects in and of itself to really make this as a separate and unique issue. Otherwise, it's it's part of medicine. Like, as much as people would think medicine's a hard science, it's really quite soft. There's a lot of trial and error that goes into it because the human body is so wild and varied. Like, one thing that might work for me isn't going to work for you. And that's just something that, like, my voice is still super fucking low. I've been on hormones for 5 years now.
Right, because hormones aren't
well, yeah, but estrogen doesn't raise your voice pitch.
You're right, but I mean, there are other aspects of it too. Like, I haven't quite, my hips haven't quite widened. My skin isn't as soft as a lot of other people's. My face hasn't, done some of that shaping and stuff. So it's really, there's a lot of like aspects to this where even if we were to grant you this one very specific part of it, there's other things that you'd have to then say to make a larger prescriptive statement of saying we shouldn't be doing this.
And again, I didn't make that statement in the conversation. So this is something you like read into it.
Right.
Yeah, with some of the arguments you made, it did sound like an anti-puberty blocker stance.
I mean, here's the thing. Like, I took puberty blockers when I turned 15. I took Lupron, and I took it for, I don't know, maybe 7 months without estrogen, right? And then I started on like a very low estrogen dose. And in my case, I didn't have long-term bone density loss. Fantastic. I also, in retrospect, because I've continued to transition for the past 7 years, it was clearly like a good decision to put me on these blockers, right? It worked out for me. And so we've got this like hindsight to say that like, oh, well, clearly it worked in this case. And so, I am in some way like testament to the fact that sometimes puberty blockers are a great decision, right? So I wouldn't say that like hormones should be limited to people above 18. What I would say is that hormones and puberty blockers are like pretty much any other treatment in medicine, something that comes with upsides and downsides. And if you are a trans teen that is experiencing mental distress from, starting puberty, that's a really good reason to put someone on puberty blockers.
So I have a question.
My point is that if you can demonstrate that mental distress, then you should be able to be put on the puberty blockers.
Yeah, so I have a question around this. So there is evidence that there are legitimate trans people who don't experience dysphoria, right? Who realize they're trans around about when puberty starts and want to start puberty blockers to prevent them going through the wrong puberty in case they get dysphoria. And they only realize like they are definitely trans when they're like, well, I might be, let me try out these other pronouns and what have you. And then they experience gender euphoria, which according to quite a lot of literature I've read appears to be a more, I'm not going to say legitimate, but consistent way to diagnose. Do you think that only people who experience distress deserve to experience gender euphoria in that instance?
Yeah, so I touched on this in the conversation earlier, just briefly. I think it was one line. And I said that sometimes if, for example, you take estrogen and blockers, you might realize that you're feeling a lot better from that, right? You might feel really good and be like, oh, this is working for me. And you might not even realize that previously you were experiencing like distress as a result of, having testosterone in your body. But after taking estrogen, you do realize that that effect was in fact there. So I think I'm agreeing that this is something that happens. But if, I think it's a matter of like triage, right? Especially in a case where you have the NHS and in a lot of places you have such long lines. I think that the treatment should be like prioritized for people who are genuinely like suicidal or experiencing severe distress. Those people should, be pushed to the front of the line. And then if another person like starts feeling distress, as time goes on, then maybe they should, also be bumped up the queue if possible.
Yeah, I understand that. That makes sense. Again, like with some of the arguments you made, it very much sounded like kind of like a bioessentialism argument. Like you have to have this specific diagnosis to be able to get treatment at all. And that kind of just rubbed me up the wrong way. I have like a follow-up on that. Who decides what counts as, quote, distress, right? Because distress is a very subjective thing.
Mm-hmm. I would say it has to be, figured out between the doctors and the patients, like anything else, right? Like if you go in for pain, the patient is going to describe their pain symptoms, and the doctor is going to listen to them and decide whether or not painkillers are an appropriate solution, right? So you have to have this conversation between doctor and patient where the patient is describing their symptoms and the doctor is deciding what the best course of action is.
Yeah, that makes a certain amount of sense, or certainly it does under the system we're under at the moment. So there's something else you said. You said that as far as you were aware, people with gender dysphoria in this country weren't blocked or denied trans healthcare, right?
What I said was not legally, right? That was my question. I said, legally. Are they legally not allowed to? Like, is there a law that says they're
written law
going to be jailed?
Technically, no.
Right, okay.
However,
that's what I thought.
There is such a thing as making things effectively illegal through public policy.
Effectively illegal? Is this the claim?
Yeah. It's effectively illegal for some people to transition in this country, yeah. Without actually being on the books as illegal.
What does that mean?
Right?
How?
Basically, it means it's so incapable of being accessed that it is effectively abolished.
Yeah, and I mean, there's even cases like that in the States too. Like, so where I live in Omaha, and our state specifically has, if you are on the exchange or you're on like a state Medicare or Medicaid, any sort of potentially hormones, depending on what you're on, and surgeries for sure are specifically denied by that insurance coverage to the point in time. So like if you're poor and you can't afford, or you not have access to workplace health insurance, you're basically blanket denied access to this care.
So to be clear, the claim is that if you're unable to afford something, you are effectively, it's illegal for you to get that thing.
No, that's not the claim.
No, okay. What is the claim then?
Well, I don't know about sin, but in my particular instance, right, it is essentially at this stage so difficult for a trans person to transition that it is effectively been illegalized.
What do you mean by that?
It means that it is so hard to find and get into like gender identity clinics, whether they're NHS or private, and it's so hard to get any form of treatment, even like a gender therapist in this country. Depending on which part of the country you're in, that they've effectively shut all the GICs down and said you're not allowed to do this.
So if I want to buy a Maserati and they only produce Maseratis in one area of the country and I can't get access to it, would you say it's effectively illegal for me to get a Maserati? I
don't think wanting to buy a Maserati is...
just answer the question. Is it effectively illegal?
That's not allegorical. I'm sorry, that's illegal? Not allegorical.
No, I'm just, in this specific case, is it effectively illegal?
It's not allegorical.
No, you're not
answering the question. That's a bullshit hypothetical.
It's a yes or no. Is it effectively illegal?
No, it's not a yes or no, because it's a bullshit debate bro tactic that means fucking nothing.
Illegal?
It's a nonsense hypothetical. No, it is a nonsense hypothetical. It's not allegorical. No,
okay, it doesn't need to be. We can talk about the connections or the not connections, but is it effectively illegal?
No, because it's a different fucking thing.
Okay, so it's not effectively illegal. It is an entirely
different situation.
If you simply
I'm sorry,
don't have access to geography.
If you can't buy a Maserati, are you likely to top yourself? If you cannot buy a Maserati, are you likely to top yourself? Are you?
I didn't hear. You're peeking.
If you don't buy a Maserati, are you likely to top yourself?
Kill yourself?
Yes, that's what that means.
You're not.
Right. So how is that allegorical? Number one, in that instance.
I think I can
Number two, sin. Shut up. Let me finish, please. Number two, it is not just geographically blocked. You are assuming, right? Now, I said specifically depending on what part of the country you're in, because in some parts it is even harder to get access to these things. But it's not just geographically it's blocked. It's also blocked financially. There is also no, there isn't a single surgeon on the NHS that does FTM bottom surgery anymore. It's not an available thing.
But
and if
there
you go
are
private,
surgeons
hang on, let
that
me finish.
do.
Let me finish.
Yeah,
let me finish. If you go private, your NHS GP is likely to strike you from their care when it comes to trans ideals, so you end up having to go private altogether, which gatekeeps it further. And that is dependent on your GP being able to refer you in the first place to a GIC, when in a lot of cases they won't. Because a lot of GPs in this country, much like there's a weird amount of anti-vax GPs, a lot of them are actively transphobic. Like, it's not just, like, officially gatekept either, right? There are points where if you go into a doctor's surgery and say, I need to be referred to a gender therapist so I can get referred then to a GIC, what you will get is laughed out and sometimes struck from their books as a patient. They will refuse to treat you for anything at all, full stop, even though technically they're not allowed to do that. But there's fuck all you can do about it, because the NHS is all the big fucking lawyers.
So, are there bottom surgeons in Britain? Surgeons who do bottom surgery? Private or public?
There is one private one that I am aware of.
Okay. Earlier in the debate, the claim was brought up that in the whole of Britain, there were no surgeons able to do trans bottom surgery for MTF or FTM.
I explicitly said on the NHS.
Right. And I appreciate that. It helps clarify, because in the debate, I just said, like, oh, okay, I'll just, I didn't challenge it because I didn't have the context to challenge it.
Yeah,
but it did seem
specifically
suspicious
on the
to me.
NHS. There is one private one that I am aware of. He's very picky and choosy about who he accepts. And if you do go with him, it's not unusual for your GP to just strike you off their books.
And to be clear, when you say that something's effectively illegal, what you mean is just that it's very difficult to get, right?
It's very difficult to get, and it's socially frowned upon to attempt to access.
Okay.
Like, socially frowned upon enough for people to treat you as a pariah, like you're a convict.
Elaborate on that.
So, for example, right, say you have been arrested for something minor, but people know you've been in prison, but not what for, right? And you come out, for example, with a prison tattoo. People will treat you a certain way, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they will shun you to an extent, right? Because they'll think you're not a part of, quote, civilized society because you've been to prison. Trans people in this country very much get the same kind of treatment if they go for transitioning.
Like,
it's very much like a socially shunning situation. We get denied entrance to businesses at times. We get denied service in different places. We get denied help from the government at times just for being trans. We get denied healthcare for things unrelated to transness because we're trans. This country is fucking hellish.
it sounds rough.
Like, I have been diagnosed with gender dysphoria, and I do not have the access to transition. I have been diagnosed with gender dysphoria for the last 2 years, and I have no access to be able to transition. My GP wouldn't even refer me to a gender therapist.
This is socialized healthcare and its consequences.
This isn't the problem with socialized healthcare. This
is what happens when the government gets involved.
This is what happens when the government. Hang on. This is what happens when the government purposefully underfunds a socialized healthcare system and leaves decisions for these things in the hands of individual doctors, as opposed to in the hands of proper public policy that isn't discriminatory.
I agree, absolutely. That's why we need private healthcare, where other people can get involved when there's a profit incentive, when there's a consumer base that is making money for people.
First of all, private healthcare exists here as well, right? Second of all, you realize, like, having a entirely private healthcare system is just eugenics with a fancy name, right? What happens to, like, cancer patients who can't go to the doctor because they can't afford it?
What?
No, seriously.
Having a private healthcare is eugenics.
No, think about it. Having a totally across-the-board private healthcare system from a philosophical point of view, is technically eugenics with a fancy name, and I will tell you for why. People who are born with severe medical issues, people who end up with cancer or Alzheimer's that need long-term treatment but will eventually kill them, people who end up with HIV but who can't afford insurance and healthcare. What happens? They die without medical intervention. Yeah, they die without medical intervention, which means what it's doing is wiping out some of the lowest people in society because it's like financially gatekept.
You know, it's
I don't think
eugenics
that's
with
okay.
a fancy name. All government policy. Because
No, I didn't say all government policy.
No, I'm saying all government policy. By this logic. Because all government policy is going to cause some people or some other people to survive more or survive less. If, for example, you create a government policy where people in low income can receive like a child, tax credit, or, a means-tested child tax credit where they receive money for having children, then you're incentivizing the production of children in a certain stratum of society, and you're disincentivizing the production of children in another stratum of society. And the result long term is like the production of more of one type of person than another. Like, I mean, I think this is an absurd line of logic, but like the fundamental truth is that like all government policies have influence over the long term on the types of genes that are expressed in a population.
Sure, but most of them don't actively lead to the painful and seriously suffering death of disabled people.
Can we go back for a second? I have to. You have to illustrate on this. You have to expand this a little bit more. How is a policy such that expands child tax credits for people lower than a certain income? Okay, let's say that there's a policy that if you make under $30,000 a year, you get an extra $3,000 in child tax credits. How does that disincentivize people who are above that $30,000 a year mark to therefore not have children? Like, unless your claim would be to follow through and say, oh, well, because they just don't have the money, in which case my stance would be, then let's just expand that child tax credit. Or, otherwise there is really no level of that holds.
Okay, I mean, we can go down like multiple ways of explaining this, but I would say that like, first of all, everyone has like a disincentive to have children, right? We see birth rates are falling in, across modern countries all over the world. And so when you create an incentive to have children in one part of the population, but not another, whatever genes are most commonly expressed in that one part of the population are going to be expressed more in the future. So, I mean, white people are in America, tend to occupy higher stratums of wealth, right? So if you create an incentive where you say everyone earning over $50K per year is going to get $10,000 per year for every child that they have, what you're doing is you're incentivizing like more white children to be born. And it is like a eugenics policy in a way. Or, the inverse, if you create, the option to give money to people who don't have less money, you're going to disproportionately be giving rewards to Black families for having children, and therefore you're going to have over time more Black children.
Wait,
I don't think that's good or bad, but like that is the reality of that kind of policy.
Wait, do you think that like people go out of their way to have kids in order to get child tax credits?
No, it just helps with it, right? So it's going to incentivize it.
It's not about incentivizing birth rates. That's not what it's about. It's about literally making sure the children that are already there can survive and not be like underfed and below the poverty line.
There's going to be some group of people that wouldn't have a child but are on the edge, and some, if they can be assured that by having the child they're not going to be put in a position of financial ruin, they're going to be more likely to have that child.
Well, no, because the thing is like, even if that was the case, then why did we not see this like so much further before, whenever this has happened? Like, we've done child tax credits before. We've done other financial programs. I'm sorry, I'm still like engaged in work mode because I'm just finishing up the work for the day. But we've engaged with tons of other access of these. Other countries have engaged in this stuff, and they don't seeming to have these issues. So why would that all of a sudden happen?
What issues? What do you mean?
There is a child tax credit here in the UK, and our birth rates are falling in line with the US.
Yeah, and the reason,
I mean, I'm not
just
saying
so we
that
know
like
it too,
all
the
child
reason
tax
why-
credits are going to reverse the trend of falling birth rates. That's definitely not my claim, to be clear. I'm just saying that you can create incentives for different kinds of behavior.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, you can.
And
but that
child
doesn't
tax
necessarily
credits is like
mean-
one example. So, I mean, moreover, like if you were to just give money to people, not even like child tax credit wise, right? If you give more money to people who can demonstrate need, right? Don't have very high income. That money you give to people is going to increase the chance of survival for some group of the population, and whatever genes exist in that group of the population are going to be more represented over time as a result of that policy.
Yeah, that's kind of not what I mean.
I mean, what I'm just saying is that like
in this specific instance,
if you create any government policy that like improves people's lives, the kinds of lives that are improved, right, are going to increase their share of the genetic pool. And I mean, like people will, I mean, you can say that's eugenics in like a very broad sense, but I think you're expanding the definition to like absurdity at that point.
so
Well, all eugenics
wider-
means is just an artificial control of birth factors done either socially or politically. That's
Which
all it means.
all government policy is going to influence to some degree. I'll be right back.
Okay, sure. I need to pop to the bathroom anyway myself. Sin, could you entertain my chat for a minute, please, love?
Yeah, I can entertain everyone. So how's it
Thank
going,
you.
people? I don't know if Taft muted. I'm not gonna say anything though. I'm gonna be nice because I enjoy being nice, which is funny. Because if you ask people who know me, they say I don't enjoy being nice. But at any rate, how are everyone doing? Anyone have any issues today? Anyone need to get anything off their chest? Clive, let's see. I was molded from the old clay, formed by the hands of God's old, long gone and long left from the world. Been wandering for a while. It's an old meme, so. I have friends that we used to play 40K with, and that was the joke. Because like, so I'm like 6'6" and fucking stacked. I used to be, back before COVID, I was weightlifting a bunch, and my leg press was almost 1,000, and my squat was upwards of 400. So.
All right, Sin, I'm gonna get going. I've got another person that I promised to stream with them. So thanks for having the conversation.
I was talking to Lex's chat. No, if you'd like to continue this sometime, because there's a couple ideas that I want to run down, mostly in the idea of basically like outcomes of harm and everything, because I think that there is a very real way in which we advocate that fucking, what's it called? Like it can lead to, like, I think pipelines are a very real thing, and it depends on how you advocate and move down. So.
Yeah. Yes, perhaps so. All right.
I've just got back just as you're leaving. You're welcome to come back for another
used
chat
to.
anytime you like, April.
Okay, thank you, Alex. You've been a lovely host.
I'd love to pick your brain some more. Like,
Yeah.
like I say, even if I disagree with people, I quite enjoy like conversations and what have you. So.
Yeah, and you can follow.
Oh yeah, let me shout
You
you
can
out.
follow Alex on his Twitch chat. It's LexiBat, if you'd like.
Are you Taftage on Twitch as well?
Twitch, yeah.
Spelled the same way?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Everyone, you can go follow Taftage.
Okay.
Show her some love. Trans brothers gotta show trans sisters some love. So do that.
Hell yeah. Okay. See ya. Okay, we're talking with Synth again. Dad. One thing that I thought could be good is oh, who's this person? Nor in chat. Oh, do you want to talk to this person about Venezuela? Okay. How's it going, buddy?
Hey.
You
What's up?
had things to say about Venezuela, right?
Yeah, hold on. I'm just gotta figure out this. Hearing you double here. Yeah, I have a bit to say. I mean, I think there's a lot of misinformation surrounding my country that I want to clear up a little bit. I'm wondering, like, what is your kind of understanding of the country and like the collapse? I only found you recently with a stream you did earlier.
My understanding is extremely limited. I understand that Venezuela was an oil-rich country that was able to deliver a lot of social services through some of the wealth generated by that. I believe it was Nicolas Maduro, right?
Yeah, he's the current president.
Yeah, and previously you had Chavez, right?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
so you have these two socialist leaders, and I understand that now that there's a ton of inflation and the currency is extremely devalued. And that's all I know.
Yeah, that's all true. Something that is not really talked about or kind of really often misrepresented is that all of the inflation and all the problems with the country is due to the U.S. sanctions, but that's not the case. I mean, granted, sanctions wouldn't improve the situation at all, but the crisis had been ongoing for very many years before any sanction had been applied. Previously, any sanctions that were coming from the U.S. to Venezuela were to specific individuals in the government, like corrupt people who would steal money from public projects. And there's kind of in leftist circle this kind of branding of Chavez as being this what's the word? They kind of hold a hero, yes. They kind of really hold him up, and kind of blame it all on Maduro, like blame everything on Maduro. But the thing is, like, all of the policies and all of the things that led to the hyperinflation that happened were directly because of Chavez's complete mismanagement of the country. And that's not even like, I don't even have to get into like specifically talking about politics and socialism because there's, I can't get into that, but there's no need because like it's so evident that there was just an open culture of corruption in the country that was completely accepted. Yeah, revered is a good word.
What's an example of that open culture of corruption?
Man, I mean, I wish I could have prepared more, but something Hugo Chavez was basically the first like Twitch streamer in Venezuela because he had this like 24-hour basically like station, like public access kind of show where he would just like be on TV constantly, like spouting out propaganda. But every single kind of public project that is presented, there is none of them were completed. I mean, they all get inflated on TV like they're going to be these massive projects, these rebuilding of like the infrastructure of the roads. We're going to have a train station from this country from this city to this city. Going to clean up the universities, and really like you don't see much of that going on. Like, they've had complete absolute power for over 20 years, and the country's like completely falling apart to the point where the currency collapsed. I mean, I got out of Venezuela in 2018, and back then there was still the Bolivar and hyperinflation, and the government was completely fighting against that. It was completely fighting against the US dollar being kind of normalized. But what ended up happening is just the currency collapsed. Like, people just completely stopped using the Bolivar. And now everyone, even though it's kind of under the table and not specifically allowed, everyone uses US dollars. So that's just like, they had this position of really this huge ideological L that they took, in that the Bolivar is like the historical figure of Venezuela. It's like Simon Bolivar, think like George Washington, and the money just was replaced by George Washington, literally out of, the failure of keeping it afloat.
Right.
That, and completely having this anti-imperialist American messaging while hypocritically, giving away all of the country's resources to China, Cuba, Russia, anyone they could get a deal with that wasn't the US. So it's not like a specific ideological position. It's kind of just like a baby kind of just kicking about, trying to basically blame everything that had gone wrong in the country, infrastructure-wise, collapse-wise, on US sabotage.
But
like,
there's
literally,
actually a
like,
great deal of corruption, is what you're saying, within the country.
Yeah, totally. I mean, Diosdado Cabello, he's Chavez's like secondhand man. God, there's got to be like 3 clips of him or something of like Hugo Chavez like acknowledging that he is like stealing money directly. Like, there have been so many investigations surrounding him. He's probably the head of like whatever drug running is going, past Colombia into Europe, because they have to pass through Venezuelan waters. And he's like a big military guy, so he's probably like at the head of all those like cartels.
So what would you say to a leftist who, hearing you now, is thinking, okay, well, it sounds like there is corruption, but if there had just been the right policies in place, you could have cracked down on that corruption, gotten infrastructure pushed through the government, and created a socialist utopia?
The thing is, like, that sounds all well and good, but I think like trying to apply that in a country like Venezuela is like pouring gasoline on a fire. Like, there's already no regulations or no actual regulations around these politicians accepting these corrupt donations and stealing from public projects.
You're basically asking people to like regulate themselves, which they're never going to do as long as they're able to profit from lack of the regulation, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And everyone in his like inner circle profited greatly from his cabinet. I mean, when they installed the currency controls in Venezuela, it was a completely false kind of, you can buy a US dollar at this rate, but only if you are are in tight with Maduro or are in tight with Chavez and his regime.
So in this country,
and everyone else had access to like not, to US dollars at a much lower rate. Like, think they would get it like 10 times the preferential rate.
It's quite a stark sort of contrast. It's quite a shocking sort of thing. There's this country that is like, ostensibly dedicated to equality, ideologically, is about like breaking down the distinctions of class. And yet in it, there's a small group of, elite politicians and party members who hold not just, a great deal of power, but so much power that they cannot be regulated by the people around them, and that they are essentially dictating all the rules about how they should act to themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And while also benefiting directly from all, because they're in control of all the projects. So obviously there's the standard corruption of, you steal everything from this public project, but there's also, who very, very intentionally designed to where they know the country is heading towards crisis. So who do they put in charge of distributing the food? Who do they put in charge of distributing medicine or all these like necessary things to live in the country? And obviously Hugo Chavez was also in the military, and he understands that he has to keep the military happy or be cooed, because that's just how things are in a country like that. So obviously all of the military gets first dibs on everything. That's just one example, like systematic corruption that was installed by Hugo Chavez. Do you allow links in your chat? Because there's a blog spot.
Yeah, you can link whatever. As long as it's not
Awesome.
like against Discord TOS or something.
No, not at all. I was gonna post it in your chat, but I can post it on Discord too. It's a blog spot that shows the watches that socialist Chavista officials have, and you see it's like 100,000 Rolexes, literally, and their sons and daughters all with these pimped out watches. It's so blatant.
So what is something that you hear like people in America or in other like Western countries saying about Venezuela that strikes you as like just completely wrong?
The most important thing is probably just defending Chavez in the sense that he just wanted to create this utopia, and I had somebody in chat the other day literally say that 100% of the problems of Venezuela are because of the US, which is just ridiculous. Like, and it's kind of weird because it takes away total agency from us to have our own problems and corruptions. It's all it's all because of American sabotage. Like, no.
I mean,
like,
it kind of
like
paints America to be like ultra powerful, like even much more powerful than they are, right? Because it's like a lot of these people who are more lefterly leaning will sort of simultaneously say that like, oh, the American system is so horrible, but at the same time, make these claims like the Americans can just dictate what happens globally, at a whim. And it's sort of, if anything, that sort of seems like, oh, well, I want to be in the country that's able to dictate, anything at a whim, but that's not the case.
Yeah, totally. And I wish it was the case that America could swoop in and fix everything, but every time they get involved with a country, they end up making it worse. So I'm kind of concerned on that front. Even though the person that they support to be president would definitely be a far improvement from Maduro.
I mean, Americans supported a leader in Chile, and now Chile has like quite good metrics in the region.
Chile had been doing very well economically. Absolutely, yeah.
So it does seem like sometimes the U.S. support is effective.
Yes, I mean direct. Like if you're supporting like Chile is obviously like much more democratic country. They have free elections. Can really do that here. You need to be a more very aggressive response, but I don't think that can really happen. Another thing I'd say is also production during Chavez's regime fell from 3 million a day to like 1.5, cut in half basically. That has nothing to do with any sort of sanctions. That was far before any sanctions were applied. That was literally a result of mismanagement, putting the wrong people in charge of the oil production. And completely relying on oil production to prop up completely relying on oil production to prop up social programs that were unsustainable in the end.
Why do you think these people were elevated to positions of power if they weren't competent?
Because of corruption. Yeah, obviously, yeah. Like there's so many examples. I think every successful businessman probably in Venezuela has engaged in some degree of corruption, just because like how else could you really have a successful company without being harassed by the police or whatever, to pay dividends.
I mean, one thing that really strikes me is just how important it is to have your ruling, class able to, be highly competent and meritocratic, right? So like,
Yes.
if you have a ruling class or like a class that's implementing policy or dictating business, and this class is put in power for ideological reasons, you're not necessarily going to have the most competent people in charge. So one thing that I think is really important in any successful country is being able to elevate people to positions of power, not based on like ideological purity or doctrine or belief in whatever the religion of the time is, but rather in like actual effectiveness. And so
Yes.
I think the thing that we see in like great cultures over and over again is a sense of meritocracy where the best people are selected.
Yes. I agree with that. I mean, there should be a meritocracy. Obviously it doesn't always exist, and there are a lot of factors that go into that. Your birth, the basically the hands you're dealt with, and what you make of them. Obviously, I was born in Venezuela. I got dealt a pretty shit hand, but I was able to, with help, get out of the country and find some degree of success here in Argentina. But let me see, because I wrote some stuff down that I don't want to not mention. Sorry, or dead air.
It's all right. I'm probably going to let you go soonish after this so I can talk with Synth, because I promised her I would talk. We just keep missing each other.
Okay, yeah, sure. Oh yes, something I want to say is I can't have a conversation with somebody like a full leftist because I have no way to even engage with sourcing. Like there's nothing I can really say or link that isn't discounted as like like US propaganda or neoliberal propaganda, and my own experience is discounted because I know English. Obviously, that means that I must be very wealthy. It's not even close to being true. If I was, I would not have stayed in Venezuela until 2018. And I was only able to get out because people loaned me money. But there's most of the online kind of racism, honestly, and general trolling from most of the racism, I'll say, like from the political side that I've experienced online has been from socialists on the left, either doubting my nationality or discounting my experience or saying that I am a Russia, like a disinformation agent or like a propagandist. And I'm just like, just because I wrote something in English on Reddit and I'm Venezuelan, that means I'm not intelligent enough. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Obviously.
That sounds really frustrating.
Yeah, because I'm not like, in a dirt hut in Venezuela. So everything that comes from my experience is the upper class's experience, not like lower middle class that I was until that all, got destroyed.
Probably if you were in a dirt hut in Venezuela and you said that, they probably also wouldn't believe you, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's only so much you can show of the country where it's like so many documentaries of like, kids starving to death. You see like the skinniest kids, and I'm from a city in Venezuela. I couldn't imagine like the fallout wasteland that would be like some of the more far out rural states. Like Jesus Christ, like things are bad over there. And I think people should, if there's anything I would want to put out there is please support Venezuelans. Please support the Venezuelans that emigrate because they have gone through some shit, and they need the community to be there for them, because the Argentine community has been extremely accepting and helpful to me. and I wouldn't have been able to really get set up here if it weren't for how accepting people are here of me. So
That's good. What's your plans with Twitch? It seems like you're really getting involved.
yeah, I'm trying. I mean, I'm kind of being forced to monetize my hobby, in that, you know, Argentina has a lot of problems too. Argentina has a lot of inflation. Yeah, sorry, your chat is making me laugh. But yeah, like wages here are also like the same thing is happening here, like because there's been a deficit for the past 20 years and there's been unrestrained public spending, and there's just, you know, or my wage, it's happening again where like every year after year my wages is being lower. So I am like kind of trying hard with Twitch because of that. And also because I think everyone that is in a third world country should and has some degree of English should try to monetize something online, because of the barrier for success is so much lower if you're earning in dollars in countries like this. You know, like,
Yeah, just a few
I
dollars go a long way, right?
Absolutely. I mean, like, I have a good job, I would say. Like, I got in with a good company and have like a white collar job, and my salary is only like $300 a month. Minimum wage here is like what, less than half of that. So people and people who don't know English should try to learn English and try to do anything to monetize themselves over the internet. People have really come in clutch, and my online friends have really come in clutch, helping me out with money and getting set up here. So
I think one thing that really strikes me is how Americans will constantly talk about like how terrible this country is, and you know how things have gotten so bad, and you know there's just a complete disaster, and that they're like, you know, Americans are sometimes like the biggest haters on America. But I think people don't realize like how much people in other countries, you know, would really love to be in this country and to have access to the opportunities that Americans typically do.
Yeah. Although something that I have pondered a lot is because I did try to get into America before I got into Argentina. My visa was denied because I didn't have enough money, but I don't think I could have achieved the same degree of success in America that I've achieved here, because over here I was able to get into a university that didn't completely demolish me with debt. I was able to work and study full time, which I don't think I would have been able to do in the States. I don't think I would have pursued university in the States.
Just because university in the States is like so sought after. The prices are, you know, they're very high.
Yeah, they're astronomical. Yeah. There's public university here. I went with a private one, so I'm only paying a little bit, but it isn't like the same. It's nowhere near like what university costs in the States. Right. And because of that education, I was able to get in with a good company that, you know, was trying to look for students and you know, pick me from there. But
in American universities, you'll often find that a lot of your classes have a lot of foreign nationals, either from China or India or just elsewhere, who come to the United States for education, because there's a reputation within their countries that like if you get a degree from an American university, that's like extremely prestigious. It's going to get you a really good job when you come back home. And so, you know, that's like one of the reasons why education gets driven up in price, just because so many people from across the world are really trying to get into it.
Yeah. Over here it's subsidized, but I think that's a pretty good be cutting from in public spending, but there's a problem here. There's a cyclical problem here with inflation that I hope gets addressed, because I really like the country in every aspect except the economy. I think we have really good unions. I think we have pretty good public transport. Beautiful city, very diverse, multicultural. There's a lot to do. Insecurity could be better, but
So what is to stop, the national bank from just raising or lowering interest rates to control inflation?
there's a lot of I don't have a lot of economic freedom here because there is a government control over how many dollars you can buy now. I can only buy $200 a month from the bank. I could buy more in the black market, but at like twice the rate. The government put in this program where, this limit of what you can spend, but what ends up happening is people end up buying those dollars and then selling them at the black market for like twice the amount of money and just getting free money every month. So it doesn't really make any sense for there to be this fake exchange that you can only get a little bit of, and then everything else is priced in with the black market rate.
I see.
So I don't know.
Got it. Well, thanks for talking. Glad I could have you on for a little bit.
Yeah, no,
Going
I like talking to you.
Yeah, for sure. I wish that I knew more about Venezuela, because I can't like push back or necessarily just agree with anything you say, because
No, obviously, yeah.
I'm just not like totally informed.
Yeah.
But-
And that's my perspective and experience. Everyone
Right.
should really do their own research and do not if you're on the left, avoid sources that are directly from the Venezuelan government if you're trying to learn from Venezuela, because everything leftists have sent to me are from Venezuelan websites or Venezuelan state websites, or don't be linking me Telesur or Russia Today. Like they're not going to have the right take on Venezuela.
I see. Yeah, be careful with your messaging, careful with your sourcing.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Annoying Chat.
Thank you.
All right, good stuff. I feel like we should probably still try to stream with synth a little bit. Oh my god. You guys don't know this, but in the chat it says like Taftash started a call that lasted a minute, and then you missed a call from synth, and then Taftash started a call. So we're just going back and forth. Oh, I've been trying to get this like wall divider for my backgrounds for like forever. I bought it like last month on Amazon, and it's not fucking here. It's infuriating. Because it'd be so sick to be able to like put up like a proper background. But I tried to buy one like months back before then, and the wrong thing got sent to me. And then I was like, okay, fine. And I like sent it back, returned the wrong thing. And then I bought another wall divider. And this is the wall divider that I haven't been able to get for a month. Infuriating. Just hang a green screen? Maybe. I considered like doing the green screen and then getting like Nick Fuentes' like background and just putting it behind me, dressing up in a suit. I think that would be very funny. I think we're probably going to do something with Stardust on Saturday. Ooh, next Saturday. That's so long. Yeah, green screen would be easier to get. Stardust streaming right now. I'll follow her. Not streaming. Nice. Stardust gets good viewership. Also, yeah, no, I already read that. Yeah. Green screen could be good. I'll look into it. It's also, I don't know, more computer processing power to consider. I've played a little bit of chess. I'm not good at it though. Give me 1 second. Okay, we're back. I might do a Mr. Girl conversation as well. I talked to him a little bit on Twitter, but we'll see. Just no talk about baking. Yeah, no talk about baking. Okay. Second stream. Probably gonna head out, and that's gonna be my stream for the day. Since synth isn't responding. Yep, I think that's all. Yeah. It'd be nice if I had her to converse with. Flowtrace is also super cool. He's in my Discord, but I don't think I want to do just like regular hangout stuff. So I'm probably gonna say goodbye again for my second stream.